Alright, so where I left off, I'm gonna make sure this mic isn't too close to my mouth. Um, I left off right here where I had only animated the legs and the arms for this walk cycle. And that's really the base sort of uh, generic walk cycle, especially for like a 2D walk cycle. So if I were to look at this from the, I want to make sure I don't accidentally select any layers. From the side, oh, hit spacebar to play it. Um, I do have a little jumpiness, but for the most part, all you need is just the arms and the legs animating. Maybe a little bit rotation in the body. As you see, I have a right there, right there. It pops back a little bit, but we're going to fix that. So here we're going to refine the walk cycle, but we're also going to add some rotation and twist in the hips as well as the chest to sort of counterbalance the weight. Another thing I want to cover is with the legs, shading, X-ray joints. Okay, with the legs, I want to go ahead and bring them closer together. Let's go ahead and hit play. And you'll see I have this little toe pop, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. It has to do with the joint placement and the IK handles that I have going on. That's something I will fix way later. If I were to bring this into something like a game engine, right, I'd probably just bake down the animation and then go ahead and fix those 1, 2, 3 frames by hand. But other than that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, I'm going to start with the hips and then I'm going to go into the legs. So, with the hips, as he's walking forward, and I believe this is where my issue is. I think I'm going to have to bring him forward a little bit. But, in fact, I'm going to do it right now. When he's walking, I want to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to grab. Yeah. I'm going to shift the weight of his hips turning towards that leg. Just subtly. So I'm just going to turn it inward just a bit. And I'm going to do that for each pose. So that was his contact pose. Now on his down pose, I'm going to bring it in a little bit more than the previous. And I'm just going to scrub through. And it's not going to be super noticeable, but just a little bit. That's better. And then here on his passing position, he's going to start to rotate the opposite way. And I'm going to do this very subtly because each frame he's going to be really shifting. So maybe here I go a little bit more because as he's starting that twist, and something like so, and then down on this contact pose, we're going to bring it just over a little bit, and then on the down pose it should sort of be a little bit more extreme. And you know, you can get into this sort of shifting of weight, which does happen, but for right now I'm going to leave it as is because I already have his back sort of rotating, not so much on the z-axis, but I'll come back and touch that one last. So contact, down, and I'm going to bring this over, and then here on his passing, bring this over. That might be a bit much. And then here on the up pose, something like that. And then I'm just going to middle mouse button drag, frame 25, from frame 1 to frame 25. And now I'm going to take a look at it and hit play. and that helps a little bit. Now I'll go ahead and get into the chest, my chest controller here. And I don't have any animation on this yet because I was going to get to that in this video. So on his chest controller, when his hips are swinging this way towards the propelling leg, your body's actually going to counterbalance and shift the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and do that every pose. So contact, down pose, and on his passing position he should start to sort of level out. Up pose, contact, down, and at the down it'll be at the most extreme. But I'm not doing too crazy because I'm not getting super exaggerated animation on this. I'm going sort of for semi-real, a little bit more realistic than animated, exaggerated sort of look. And then here, this pose, I'm going to start to bring it back. And on here, I'm going to start to bring it a little bit more back because, and then I'm going to just middle mouse button click here and go back. And the best view to see this shift of weight as he's walking is in the front view. Alright, now I'm going to check it from the side viewport, and I'm going to grab my root control and I'm going to middle mouse button click this one to frame 25 because I did make an adjustment on that. And we're going to have a quick pause. Alright. So far so good. Alright, so another couple things I want to do is the knee controls, but I'm going to do that last. But I want to bring these feet in because I think it'll help with the visualization of the shifting of weight. So when we're walking, we're actually falling forward as we walk, and then we sort of catch our weight. So contact, down, passing position. You'll see it mostly here. So we start to sort of shift our weight forward, and I might even need to bring that weight a little bit more. And then we sort of catch our fall. So here, I'm going to bring the feet in just a second, but we start to catch our fall. So we're really shifting our weight forward, and this contact pose is to catch the fall. And then our weight really shifts forward because we're catching ourselves. And that's really what we're doing, is we're just sort of counterbalancing our weight as we walk. The best way to see this is when a baby is starting to walk and learn how to walk. You see how they sort of are falling to catch their fall. That's the best description or example I can think of. But to give this sort of weight, give this a little bit more weight, what I'm going to do, and this I can bring down now, is I'm going to bring this one in 1. I think that should be a pretty good number. And on 25, 25, I'm going to middle mouse button click and drag onto frame 25. And then here, I need to do that for each one. And I'm just bringing in 1 on each one. And this will give it so it doesn't look like it's sliding around. And you can really see it from certain angles, but this is good. This is good. Here we go. And then I'll go ahead and adjust the knees also. Alright. Same thing on this. I guess I'll go -1. Middle mouse button, click and drag, and here I'm just going to continue that process. Here, -1. Here, -1. And here, -1. Alright. So now we're going to take a look at it. It should look a little bit better. I think that looks more natural as opposed to before, with his feet more spread, to sort of have the weight directly underneath him as he's walking. If he were jumping and making a landing, I'd probably have his feet spread a little bit more to sort of balance that core weight falling down. But I think it looks much better with the feet closer. So, in my side view, I'm actually going to bring this forward a little bit more, because his weight should be shifting forward on the contact and on the down pose quite a bit more. Here, maybe not so much. Bring that back. Bring that forward a little bit. There we go. Bring that up a little bit. Okay. Now let's take a look at it. Now let's give it 24 frames to play at, so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay. Now the last thing I want to do, I see a little jumpiness in the head. That's because I haven't animated the head yet, or at least I hope so. So let's go through and start to animate the head a little bit on my neck control here. So my neck control basically controls the head. Alright, so here, and I'm going to have them sort of, I can go through my front viewport first and give it, because as he's walking, let's go frame 25 also. Down pose, his head will come down a little bit. Here on the passing position, I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Here I could even bring it up a little bit more. And on the contact I'll bring it down a little bit. And this is because his head is so top heavy that, and here we'll start to bring it down. Pose I think should be down a little bit more. And here, up pose, or passing position, here, bring it here, and let's bring it forward a little bit. Alright, and with his head twisting so much, it's not really his head, it's his chest and his root control forcing that twist. So on each one of these frames I'm going to start to just sort of level them out to be centered so it doesn't have a shimmy shake as he's going. And your head will naturally do this as you're walking. Okay. And And then I'll get into doing the eyes next, and also the knees. I'm just going through this pose by pose. Really big turn there, and I'll just double check that's right. And let's see how that does. And that's a lot smoother in my opinion. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check it from all my viewports, even the top, shading, X-ray joints, and see what it looks like. And I think that looks really good from the top view. Front viewport, I think it looks really good there. I think it looks good here, and that's good too. Alright, so before I get into doing that with the knees, I'm going to do the fingers. So, because I don't want to have what I call pancake hands, I'd like to have a little bit of I think that'll work. And then on this hand, I'm also going to do something similar, just so it doesn't have that non-animated look actually. And then on the thumb, I don't know, something like that. And then I'm just going to sort of, on some of these here, I want this to sort of flatten out as it's passing. And I like to start this part with zeroing everything out. I don't want it to be pancake hands, but I also don't want it to be let's see, that'll work. Again, here on this pose, I'm going to bring that out just a little bit, and just so it's asymmetrical, I don't want both hands to look exactly the same. Alright, on this pose here, I'm actually going to bring, is that what it looks like here? Okay, so I got his hands sort of intervening one another. Okay. Now right here, I'm going to sort of bring these out a little bit. And it doesn't look much like a thumb there. That does. Okay. Same thing here. I think I'll add another pose. Let's go frame 25 before I push forward. Same thing here. Alright. And frame 17. Just to give it more life, if you will. Alright, and let's just see how that plays back. So far so good. I'd like a little bit more from here to here. And I really do believe the hands are really important. And here to here. Oop. Just to make sure. And let's go ahead and hit play. It's alright. It's good enough. So, another thing I'm going to do is the eyes, and then I'll do the kneecaps. So, the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to bring this back. And you'll see, if I show you up close, if you look at his eye here, as I bring it back, it's actually starting to level out, because this is controlled by an aim constraint. It might fix the entire thing that I like it to, because I don't want his eyes to sort of roll back into the back of his head. Let's go here. And now I'm going to play it. I'm just going to focus on the eyes. I think that'll work. So let's go ahead and play it back. Alright. If I wanted to, I could start to, animate the ears as he's walking. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I could get a really exaggerated look, like a floppy ear look that's bouncing up and down, especially on like sort of his contact pose to his up position. So the contact or down pose, the ears would flop down, and then they would spring back up on the up position, and it would give it a really sort of elasticy feel, but I'm not going for that look right now. But it is something I could include as sort of a secondary action. And last but not least, the knee controls. Certainly not least. So here I'm just going to start by, I'm going to actually bring that in. And on all of these poses, I'm actually going to go ahead, passing position. Here I'll bring it out just a bit. Here I'll even bring it out a little bit more. And I'm just sort of eyeballing this as I go. Maybe it pops out a little bit, and here I'll bring it in. And here, something like that. And then middle mouse button, click here. And the same thing for this one. And this is controlled by a pole vector constraint. And I think I brought it out for this pose on the last one. Bring this one out a little bit. Okay. And I'm just really quickly running through this. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and play it. Yeah, I think adding the knee movements really helped. Other things I could include are all of these spine controls, and typically I would. And I would just work my way up the body because sort of like a rule of thumb is if you have the control to animate it, you animate it. But in this case, you know, I can get a little bit more wiggle in his spine. I'll just quickly do sort of a quick pass on it. I'm hoping I don't get too much jumpiness if I do this, because then I'll have to really go back and rework it. But and we'll see if it actually does add quite a bit to him. No, not too much there. And let's just take a quick look-see. Alright. And the way I do this is because it's an FK, forward kinematic control system, on his spine. I would work my way up the spine. So here, maybe here, a little bit more. And because I know each frame is, there we go, going to drastically, or each controller will drastically affect each and every other one, moving my way up the controls. Let's see here. And I can really get a line of action here through those controllers. And since I have it and I'm already sort of working my way up through it, the next one after that is the chest controller. So this is the last one I need to focus on. And here. And I could get a lot more exaggeration in the twist, but it primarily happens in the shoulders. And the chest region with that twist. And here we'll bring it back up a little bit. Ooh. And middle mouse button, click here. Let's just see. And I get a lot more sort of jerkiness out of it. I was sort of counterbalancing it without those forward kinematic controls before. Not the clav, I want the neck. Nope, this one. So here we'll keep it, and then here I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Here I'm actually going to bring it down a little bit. And here I'm going to bring it up a little bit. And here I'm going to bring it this way a little bit. Middle mouse button, click here. And let's take a look. And it did add quite a bit to it. It's got sort of this more determined feel to him. And I'm just going to come through here. And make final adjustments. And this is really just sort of getting into the fine details of it. And I'm not really going for anything but more so of a generic walk, but something that just feels right. Alright. Okay, so there is my walk cycle. I'm going to take a look at this from all views really quickly, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to so I don't see any of the controllers or the skeleton. I don't need to select anything inside the mouth. Eye lenses, let's turn those off for a second. There we go. I was wondering why that wasn't going right. And I think that's it. I won't worry about anything inside of the mouth. And there we go. And his eyes do roll a little bit. I have to go back and tweak that. But for the most part, he's animating pretty well. Let's go ahead and check it. That's okay. Oh, I want to check it from each viewport. I think that's working pretty well. Other than the eyes going up, I'm going to fix that in just a second. But he's working pretty well. Again, this was a battle test for my rig, so I just wanted to make sure. Which frame is it? It's the first frame. Look at that. That works. Let's go ahead and bring it down a little bit more. Same thing here. And we gotta bring it down even more here. Okay, and that's because I went through. Now I want to bring it back up. I just don't want his eyes to sort of be rolling in the back of his head. And what that tells me, let's see. Okay, perfect. So now, let's check it one more time. And that works. And I was just focusing on his eyes to make sure they're not rolling in the back of his head. I could go in and add facial animation to it as well, but I'm not going to because don't really need to. But at least for a walk cycle, maybe get some grimace on the down contact pose, something like "arr," I don't know. And then as he comes up, maybe something more exaggerated with his eyebrows or something. You can really play around with it and pull a lot of features out of facial animation. But that's all I've got for you. Let's play it back at 24 frames. So we went through and animated from basically head to toe this character. So I know you may not be animating with this same exact rig, obviously. However, if you've created a rig yourself, given it a battle test, this is a great way to do it by actually getting in there, animating it, and see if there are any errors. One thing I'm going to do at some point, I have the hood control, or the cloak, and I went back in and tried to fix up some of the weights, and I just ended up messing it up more than I wanted to. I thought it was actually a lot better before I played around with it. But what I'm going to do, so I don't have this sort of cloth following his feet, maybe it's draping behind him, however it may be, I'm going to do that using a cloth simulation and see how that works. And I'll share that in a future video, making this cloth a simulation connected to the character. Anyway, that's all I've got for you in this video. I really hope you enjoyed watching it, and yeah, stay tuned for it's this one. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see if I can get the simulation up for the cloth in a future video. Alright, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.